We also have the ability to pull documents right out of Sage 100 or 300. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to pull up Sage 300 and into what we have, the Information Assistant. Everyone that has a Sage 100 Contractor, note the functionality I'm showing right here is identical in Sage 100 Contractor. It's just done within that software instead. I can pull up an inquiry, or in Sage 100 Contractor, pull up a vendor or a job or an invoice, and anywhere in either software there is a paperclip icon that would have a logical connection back to documents. So vendor, I'm looking at a vendor and I want to pull up the paperclip icon, the attachment icon for that vendor. I want to see everything related to it. I pull that up and it gives me a link. Again, 100 Contractor will have the exact same thing on a vendor record or on a job record or on an invoice, all that kind of stuff. We pull it up, and what this does is it launches paperless and shows me every related document that has vendor 100, in this case, connected to it. And here they are. See my purchase orders, my invoices, things like that. I can print them from here, email them, send them off. And I can even delve deeper and say, well, show me on the invoice level. These documents will then pull up, and I believe on this one I have a couple lien waivers. Yeah, here we are, a couple lien waivers. I have the actual check put into the system. All that stuff's automatically coded in, and with that extra security that we talked about earlier. I'm not accessing documents that I shouldn't see, even though I'm coming in through this method, because my secondary security is picking up and letting me only see the things I should. On top of that, just to throw this out, anytime you're coming in through this method, through the paperclip icon, through the attachments on either software, you can open it up in read-only mode to view documents, to print them off, to distribute them, and we will not charge you for a license of the software as you're doing that. Last bit before I move into the AP side of things, note that all of our documents in the system have back-of-the-house kind of rules that you can set up and turn on to how you need them. And what I mean by that is we have the ability to not only set the security up we've been talking about this whole time, but you can set up retention periods and archival times. So you might have things move to an archive folder after a while because they're no longer needed to be shown all the time. But most importantly is the retention period, because if you're going to be storing in all your human resources documents, your project documents, and everything like that, you need to make sure that those things are not removed for 7 to 10 years, depending upon the laws. And so you actually put down that retention amount of years or months, and what you're telling the system is, do not allow anyone to delete this until that time period is up. And that will prevent these documents from getting erased out of your system and allow you to, of course, maintain them for however long you need. Now, as I pointed out earlier, we have a whole AP section here as well. So everything is one software. And that's the beauty of this. Everything that we did with our normal documents are all connected back in. So as I start entering in invoices and scanning those in from the AP side, everything's going to be automatically collated and tied together. A great example would be I come in and code in some invoices for Cook's Lumber in this invoice, and it goes through and it's connected to a purchase order and a subcontract. Well, I can do just that. Enter in the invoice, have it routed for approval based on any of the criteria that you have on the system. But it's all coded together. So let's do a quick invoice here. I got my vendor. It's throwing me up a compliance error saying that this vendor is out of compliance. We have all the same checks and balances you have in normal Sage accounting, period. Checks and balances in terms of subcontractor compliance, in terms of going over budget, going over commitment, telling us if there's a duplicate invoice number. If it's in Sage, we have it here, and we have you to the option to either say warn or error. So if you want to be able to just skip past the error, like this one allows me to right there, you can. And if you want them to say, nope, they got to stop and take care of that before they do anything else, you set that up to error, and the users have to go through that. But we code out our whole invoice on here so that, again, we can get this out the door as quickly as possible and get the invoice paid. Now, as I pull it on here, I'm going to get all my lines of distribution. Note we can do everything from an overhead expense to a job to equipment to purchase orders, subcontracts, property management, chargebacks. Anything you're using on there, we can. And we have direct connections throughout here to Sage, so you never have to worry about, hey, somebody just created this job a minute ago, has it synced in with my system? No, it's going to be there immediately as part of the process. Also, if you find that a cost code's missing, and security permitting, because we always want to make sure that you're not giving people too much access if that's not what you want to do. But security permitting, I'm looking at this, and this cost code that I need to add isn't on the list. I can pull from my standard cost code list and push that right back into the system so I don't have to leave, open up my job section, add that cost code or budget for it, and things like that. You code it all out. Again, all the same rules apply. You hit route. It sends it over to your people for approval. And now the approval process comes into play. First thing I want to let you guys know, we do automatically notify people via email when they have stuff to approve. So they'd get an email maybe once a day, maybe twice a day. You actually set up the schedule of how often you want that to go. And it'll notify them via email and say, hey, you've got 10 documents sitting out there. Please log in for approval. How do they do that? Well, today they pull in, they open up the Sage Paperless Construction module. They go into the Approve Invoices section, and here's everything they need laid out for them. We got the actual invoice information here. I've got only one invoice to approve in my bucket. I can see that this is a purchase order. I can look back at all the notes that had happened before and figure out what's going on. I can mark it up just like in the other documents we were talking about earlier. I can put my stick it notes on there, stamps. I can cross off lines as they're no longer needed or just put text on there. And also I can see from here as well, since this is a PO, well, show me my commitment. Show me all the information behind the scenes to make sure that as a project manager or as a executive level or whoever it is that's reviewing this document, what do I need to know? Well, I got the original commitment. There's been no change orders. It's been invoiced to date a little bit above and beyond the commitment, so we have a variance there. It's been only paid, though, a small amount. Actually, I'm reading that again. It's not been paid. And I can also see any of the unitary amounts as well. Besides just being able to pull this document up to look at and see this information, again, you can have the system automatically warn or error out on you when you go over any of the commitments as well. So if your people do not want to spend the time to read it, at least it'll stop them and warn them or error out on them if they do go beyond where they should. You also have a button right here called Documents. And remember earlier how I said everything's one single system that has everything tied together? Here's where that comes into play. I hit the Documents button on an AP invoice, and it knows that the lien waiver that I coded out earlier has been tied to this as well, so it pulls that up. The purchase order that I've tied to this invoice is also on here. The receiving ticket's on here. If I had any credit card transactions that went along with this invoice, those would come too. Any document that's related to the invoice will, and any document that's not 100% related but could be, actually will show up down below and say, well, we got these receiving tickets for this vendor and for this job, and nobody said what invoice these belong to, so is it part of this? And I can literally take those and tie them together. That's the beauty of this. Everything is tied together. And all the buttons for the approval are all in one single spot. I got approve, I got reject, I got hold. I can reroute this to somebody else, change the route, add somebody else to it, and track everything in between. I can even edit the invoice, or think of your project managers who are out there who are getting invoices. They might actually get an invoice where the originating person didn't know the cost code and category or didn't even know the job. The project manager or whoever it is that's receiving these documents can go in, enter that information manually at this point, prove it, and send it on its way. It's not requiring all that in the beginning because in the beginning people might not have known. And to make sure your guys are on track and getting their work done, we've got plenty of reports and pieces of the software to do all that. In our reporting section, you can run outstanding invoice agings by vendor, by job, or just see an aging by reviewer. This is a great report that tells you all the data you need to see right in a quick glance of who your reviewers are, who are your approvers, how many documents do they have, how long have they been sitting in their inbox, and how many dollars are sitting out there. Right away, I can see Dustin's got over $100,000 worth of invoices sitting out there, 12 documents in total, and he has not yet approved them. So I might delve into this, see a little bit more detail into it, maybe even go to the documents and call up Dustin and tell him to get in the software and start doing it. And by the way, if you have anyone who gets on sick or is on vacation for a long time and they're just not able to get into the system to help, we do have the ability to temporarily or even permanently give rights to somebody's inbox to a different user. That user then be able to approve for that person, and the system will record who should have approved it and then who actually did approve it. So all that's in the audit logs at the end of the day. We also have reports as well for the accounting side. Might do something where you want to see what your job costs look like to date. Since you have all your invoices flowing through the Sage Paperless system before they hit your accounting, that might mean that you want to see, well, show me what's my unapproved. I want to see what's committed so far to my job, even though it hasn't been fully approved. We have the job cost summary report that does just that, where I can pull in and see each of my jobs, how much is posted, meaning in the accounting system already approved, and how much is unposted, meaning still with being approved on. And that'll give you a pretty good idea where you stand on a particular job at any given point there. All these reports are customizable through Crystal Reports. If you guys happen to use Crystal, great product to use to bridge everything together and get those exact reports you need. And we also have a dynamic invoice manager as well. Think of this as kind of a query into your system where you can literally look at documents based on their status, sort them by due dates, by discount dates, by amounts. And if I'm pulling this up here, I can say, well, this document for $22,000 is sitting out there. It's currently waiting for Dustin and Justin to approve it. Afterwards, it'll go to me anyways. Since they're not getting things taken care of, I'm going to go ahead and jump in, take a look at the document, make sure it's coded correctly, and approve it myself. Again, security permitting. I can do just that from the system. I can look at the related documents. I can pull them all up. It gives me an opportunity to push things through faster as I need to. And once everything's been approved, we just tell it to export back over into Sage, and it'll put them right into your Sage 100 or 300 system. And all the documents that go along with it will automatically be put into those paperclip icons as well, so that, again, you can search for and find those very quickly. One last part to this AP routing and approval system is check review. Obviously, you're going to put the stuff into your accounting system. You're going to need to cut checks out later on. It's the whole point of this process. So why not, let's give you a tool that makes it very easy to sign those checks with all the knowledge that you need to go along with it. So in the past, a lot of people would cut out the checks. They'd go into their filing cabinets. They'd find the invoice, the purchase order, the subcontract, or whatever, find all the documents, photocopy them, staple them to the check, and hand it to somebody to look at and approve. Well, we can do that all digitally now. Since everything's tied together, your accounting system, all the documents, everything, you just put in the check number range in front of you, and what this does is it's literally reading my accounting data to say, well, this check paid this vendor on this date and this amount with these invoices. That invoice has these documents down below tied to it. It was reviewed and approved by Justin and Vincent, and here's all their notes. Everything I need to know about this invoice, check, is right here in front of me. This could even be used later on down the line if you have any discrepancies with your cash management when you're doing your bank reconciliation. Because, again, you have all the physical documents, including even the check if you want to scan that in as well. Everything's tied in here, and you can just pull it up and see it. And as you go through, again, you just flip over to the next line. You can see all the invoice amounts, the lien waivers, everything, who approved it. We just want to make sure you have all the information right there in your fingertips.